There is no warrantless searches of American citizens' data. That does not occur under FISA. It's not permissible under FISA. It's illegal. They don't even have the mechanism within which to do it. They survey foreigners located abroad, and a limited subset, it's about 250,000 people. It is subject to court supervision, and the court supervision is determining that each of those individuals represents a national security threat, a foreigner abroad, national security threat to the United States.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Here we are Wednesday morning. Man, we had a rough weather night last night. I was up most of the night last night listening to it, thunder, lightning, rain. It was bad. It was bad. I hope everybody else made it through safe, though. And I know the rest of the southeastern side of the country right now is catching a lot of really bad weather. So y'all just hunker down, be safe. How you doing, Denise?
I am awesome. Ready to be here on this Wednesday. I'm glad I got the date right today. What also was crazy about last night is I don't know what kind of bugs or what was flying around in front of our cameras.
Our door
outside,
cameras?
Our door cameras, but they kept going off. We kept thinking someone was walking on our porch at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, it went off a bunch last night, man.
It really did. So it drove me crazy. I was like, just sit up all of a sudden whenever it would go off. It was nuts.
And my guess is it's just a bug or something that flies over and lands on top of the door camera, because one night back a week or two ago it went off like that. I walked out there and looked, a bunch of June bugs flying around by the porch light. So I bet you that's what it is.
Well, it's the only. Well, no, we have our porch light we keep on at nighttime because it's really dark out here. So, I guess the light from the actual camera.
Now the bugs fly in front of it. That's what happens.
Well, I just wonder why the bugs keep going toward that. Because does the light come on whenever they go by it or something?
Probably. Anyway, I don't know.
I'm going to have to pay attention to that. Anyway, but before
remember the one time, the first time that it went off, remember you looked in your camera and there was a cricket or a grasshopper that was up there looking at you through the camera.
No, it was climbing on it. Yeah. It was kind of startling, but it was funny. I laughed.
Yep.
But before we get started with the show, everyone, today, can you please do us a favor and share the show with all your friends? Stomp that like button, and please follow and subscribe wherever you see the name. Is this thing working? You are helping us grow, and we thank you for that. But make sure you be informed and become engaged every single day. We put you in the room. We have a big show today, so we're going to move right into it with the economy. Did you hear this morning from MarketWatch? Inflation rises sharply again in March. The CPI shows and raises doubt about the federal rate cut. We already knew they're not going to cut rates.
No,
man. They're making too much money on us right now.
Well, I was going to ask, too, in this complete Biden presidency, have you ever seen a good economic report from this administration? Every time that a new economic report comes out, it ends up being bad news. Every single time. Every single time.
But the cost of consumer goods and services rose a sharp 0.4% in March, capping off a third straight month of elevated inflation readings that will make it hard for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates anytime soon. The March report on consumer prices showed inflation stuck well above 3% and far from the Fed's 2% goal. The increase in the CPI over the past 12 months moved up to 3.5%. From 3.2% and hit the highest level since September. The core CPI climbed 3.8% in the 12 months ended in March. And this one is the important one. It's unchanged from the prior month.
And I want to tell you that's important, too, that the whole article brought this out as you were reading this, because we've talked about the different reporting that we hear. We've heard 3.5, we've heard 3.7. Fox News was reporting 3.7. We've heard 3.8. And what they're doing, just like with this right here, this 3.5%, that's an adjusted rate, the 3.5%, and how that it's rose 0.4. And CNN was even reporting that. But like you say, when you get down to the truth of the matter, the core CPI, which is important, that's the one that has climbed 3.8%.
Yes. So inflation continues to go up. And we all know this. We shop in the grocery store. I heard something today about the most expensive automobile out there? And guess what it is? The shopping cart.
More than a Tesla?
More than a Tesla right now. The shopping cart, man. You know, going to buy groceries is not fun for anybody right now. So we need to, I don't know, if they had quit spending money, this would go down.
And here, just to put all this in perspective for this past year, inflation has averaged 5.6% under Biden through his entire presidency. It averaged 1.9% under Trump. Average weekly earnings are down 4.2% under Biden. They were up 8.2% under President Trump. Our gas prices have been above $3 a gallon now for 1,064 days under President Biden, and they never hit $3 a gallon under President Trump. And the last thing that we talked about, like with interest rates, average 30-year fixed mortgage rates, less than 2.7% when Biden took office. What are they today? They're right at 7%.
7%, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
So every time that they continue to try to rig the numbers,
Yeah, we all know better.
we all know better.
We
That's
all know
exactly
that we
right.
were better off 4 years ago than we are today.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, we're going to move on to this woman who was sentenced to prison for stealing and selling Biden's daughter's diary. Aimee Harris of Florida sold Ashley Biden's diary to conservative group Project Veritas in actions judge called despicable. Well, we just wanted to bring you this update because we did talk about her last week. She has been sentenced Tuesday to a month in prison and 3 months of home confinement for stealing and selling Joe Biden's daughter's diary 4 years ago.
Yeah, Aimee Harris was sentenced in Manhattan federal court by Laura Taylor Swain, the judge who called the Palm Beach, Florida resident she called her actions despicable. The writer goes on to say that Harris pleaded guilty in a conspiracy charge in August of 2022, admitting that she received $20,000 of the $40,000 that was paid by Project Veritas for personal items belonging to the president's daughter, Ashley Biden. And we remember this. But the truth in this is, and the media continues to say that she stole this diary. She didn't steal this diary. That diary was left there. And when she found that diary, she took that diary and she went to the press with that diary.
Yes. She pled guilty to conspiracy to transport stolen property across state lines. That's what...
Yeah, they
That's
say
what they-
that, but it was never
I
stolen.
just can't believe this.
Yeah.
I mean, they even like make up stuff.
It was never stolen.
You know?
Yeah, it was never
Yeah.
stolen. And really, they claimed for all that time, even after they raided James O'Keefe, oh, the diary wasn't real. The diary wasn't real. But then if you've convicted this woman on quote unquote stealing a diary, then that's confirmed that it is real.
I know.
Yeah.
It is real.
Yeah.
And what gets me is, bless her heart, she had to come out and pretty much give their talking points in order to even be sentenced. She says, I do not believe I am above the law. She says that.
Well, she didn't break, I don't know.
I mean, because they're like, you are not above the, you know how they are.
Yeah.
And that is part of their stick. And now the judge goes, well, she carries the shame and stigma of her actions. So you didn't just shame her, you put her in jail as well. I mean, this is all about shaming somebody for doing something that was the truth.
Well, and that's
for
what
giving the truth out there.
And that's what they hoped to do with James O'Keefe when they made the big spectacle about going to his house and retrieving the diary from him. To me, man, it's her, Ashley Biden having a diary, her leaving it behind, these people taking it, Aimee Harris taking it to Veritas. To me, the big story is none of that.
I know.
None
I
of
know.
that. Because the reason that she took that diary to him was to do what? Expose what? Expose the fact.
Expose the fact that Biden is a pedophile.
Exactly.
And it says right here that the judge says, well, she wanted to damage Miss Biden's father. Well, yes, she did. She wanted to give out the truth. It wasn't about damaging him. It was about giving the truth to the American people who were going to elect a man
Exactly.
for president.
Exactly. You want to worry about damaging your reputation? Don't shower with your underage daughter, you freak.
Yes.
You pervert. You pedophile. You know, this makes me sick, and that's what we're talking about here is the fact of how the media can take things and frame them. And if you don't do your own research and look and read these things, this is what you're led to believe all the time.
All the time, because we're reading out of The Guardian right now, and this is how The Guardian framed it. This is what they put in here is things that are talking points of Democrats. This is a Democrat activist judge. I'm sorry, it just is. And we're going to move on to another thing that's going on right now that's really important in America, and it is this FISA. And if you remember, the FISA, Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and it expires in 10 days. And that's why there's all an uproar right now on what we should do about this FISA thing. And we have our Congress, they're like fighting amongst each other. You know how like they always do.
Right.
They come out and they tell us, you know, well, this is what's going on. And then we have another one tell us, well, that's not going on. Well, we're fixing to just go through all that right now.
Right. What they're doing in this bill now is trying to revise and redo some of the FISA Act.
Yes. And it has to be renewed is what it is. And they've been putting it off for a while. I mean, I even know when they were doing these big omnibus bills, this had come up. And they wanted it to be finished way before now. Why they have to wait until the actual date that it needs to be renewed, I will never understand. But Marjorie Taylor Greene puts out this tweet, and she says this. She says in quotes, "Rules for thee, but not for me." And what we found crazy about what they're doing here is Congress gives itself a carve-out in the reauthorization of FISA 702, warrantless spying on Americans. The bill requires the FBI to notify and seek consent from Congress before violating the privacy of congressmen.
So they're exempt.
But the American people aren't.
Exactly.
They didn't put a carve out anywhere in there.
They never will.
What I find really strange about this right here is they come out with a carve out for Congress, but then we have another representative who is a GOP representative, and he comes out and says, but there's nothing in this bill that is a warrantless spying on Americans. There's nothing in the bill. But then they come out here today, and we're going to play you this video, but they come out here and say that but they're going to protect the congressman. So what is it? Let's listen to him.
There is no warrantless searches of American citizens' data. That does not occur under FISA. It's not permissible under FISA. It's illegal. They don't even have the mechanism within which to do it. They survey foreigners located abroad, and a limited subset. It's about 250,000 people.
I want to know something. How do you know that it's a subset of 250,000 people? How do you know that right offhand all of a sudden?
Because 250,000 people have been spied on by FISA. And that's all the January 6th. That's President Trump and all of his cabinet.
Exactly.
Everybody. You know, they have been spied on.
Yeah, so for him to sit here and say that there's not is a lie. He continues on here just for a few seconds. Let's listen to the rest of it. I just had to interrupt. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It is subject to court supervision, and the court supervision is determining that each of those individuals represents a national security threat, a foreigner abroad, national security threat to the United States.
Yeah, but who deems what's a national security threat? You? I mean, just because you didn't like the people that showed up on January 6th and that was okay to go and spy on all of them?
Here's the thing. I don't care if you believe I'm a national security threat. I don't care if you believe I'm qualified to be king of the world. I don't really care. My point is, if you've got questions about me or if you want to find out some information about me, come ask me. First of all, look me right in the eye and come to me and ask me. But if you really want to spy on me, I want to tell you something. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution tells me that you're not allowed to do that without a warrant. And for you to sit here and say that oh, no, we don't spy on people without a warrant, Representative Turner, you're telling a lie.
Oh, yeah.
You're telling a lie because you do, and you have, and you've been caught at it.
Yes.
Countless times.
And what's up with this? What's up with you coming out and pretty much you're the only one?
Well,
I didn't hear anybody else. Did you hear anybody else come out and say there is no such thing as this warrantless spying on Americans? Are you telling us that?
Yep. Well, Edward Snowden revealed all this to us back years ago.
Oh, yes.
That they've been doing this, and they've been doing this for a long time. This is not a thing that just popped up. So
Yes.
I don't know how he can sit here, look everybody in the face and say this. Yeah. Right.
Well, Jake Sherman from the Punchbowl News came out this morning right before we come on and started our podcast. And he said, at Speaker Johnson to House Republicans on FISA. Speaker Johnson says, I want to be clear. What happens if we fail this week? The Senate is prepared to move a clean extension of FISA. And if the House does not pass our bill, we will be forced to accept it next week, because we cannot allow this vital national security tool to go dark. House Republican leaders think the rule is in big trouble. Johnson also said that the 56 reforms will do more than enough to address the FISA abuses we all know must be stopped. A big ultimatum here from Johnson on a very thorny issue. And this is a very thorny issue, and I don't believe a thing he said.
No, I don't either.
I mean, the Senate is prepared to move a clean extension. What does that mean? That I haven't seen you put anything in there at all that would stop the warrantless spying on Americans.
Well, and that's what I want to know. This is the first I've heard of these 56 reforms. I've not seen any of these 56 reforms listed anywhere in the press for any of us as American citizens to see.
I haven't either. And it's just one more thing that he's going to come out and gaslight. Everything is national security. I'm getting a little tired of national security without no freaking proof.
Being the catch-all.
Being the catch-all for everything. It's a new talking point. Just like all the media does. Just like all of our Congress. All across the board. Like we were hearing this morning.
Yeah.
You know, did you hear this morning? NPR comes out. An NPR veteran comes out and says exactly what we've been saying this whole time about the mainstream media and what they've been doing.
Yeah. And the worst of them has been NPR. If you pay attention, I can sit here and laugh and stomach a little bit of CNN. I can sit here and laugh at Morning Slow and those people on MSNBC and all of the fake news. I can deal with them. But, man, even trying to turn my radio on to drive to work and catch just a little bit of NPR, I'm telling you, man, after just a couple of minutes, I couldn't do it. They're so fringe and they're so left wing and they're so agenda driven.
And they become activists.
Yeah. And this is what a person on Twitter, he tweeted this out and he says, read this. This is what it says. This is the crux of the article that we're looking at here about NPR. And this is what it says. It says, NPR veteran describes the transformation of NPR from a news to an activist organization after President Trump's election. It says, quote, during most of my tenure at NPR, an open-minded, curious culture prevailed. We were nerdy, but not knee-jerk activists or scolding. In recent years, however, that has changed. Today, those who listen to NPR or read its coverage online find something different. The distilled worldview of a very small segment of the U.S. population. Like I said, they're left wing and they're fringe in all of their viewpoints, their perspectives. He goes on to say, like many unfortunate things, the rise of advocacy took off with Donald Trump. As in many newsrooms, his election in 2016 was greeted at NPR with a mixture of disbelief, anger, and despair. But what began as tough, straightforward coverage of a belligerent, truth-impaired president veered toward efforts to damage or topple Trump's presidency. Persistent rumors that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia over the election became the catnip that drove reporting. At NPR, we hitched our wagon to Trump's most visible, antagonistic representative, Adam Schiff. The Schiff talking points became the drumbeat of NPR news reports. But when the Mueller report found no credible evidence of collusion, NPR's coverage was notably sparse. Russiagate quietly faded from our programming. It's bad to blow a big story. What's worse is to pretend it never happened, to move on with no mea culpas, no self-reflection. Hunter Biden's laptop was newsworthy, but the timeless journalistic instinct of following a hot story lead was being squelched. During a meeting with colleagues, I listened as one of NPR's best and most fair-minded journalists said it was good we weren't following the laptop story because it could help Trump. Over the course of the pandemic, a number of investigative journalists made compelling, if not conclusive, cases for the lab leak. But at NPR, we weren't about to swivel or even tiptoe away from the insistence with which we backed this natural origin story. I want to tell you something. Everything that they've said right here doesn't just sound like, in my opinion, everything that he has just said right here gives you proof that the media works hand in hand with our government to control the narratives, to control the stories, to keep us divided and at each other's throats instead of doing what? Focusing our attention where it should be.
Yes. I mean, this is the mainstream media we have been yelling at and calling fake news since 2016. This is what happened, and this is why the cult of the left did this, because they hated the fact that President Trump beat Hillary Clinton. And I tell you what, every single day, let me tell you, every single day, I will be very thankful that we were part of a movement to stop Hillary Clinton from ever becoming president of the United States.
I am too, but I'm going to tell you something. I'm also equally as angry at the fact that during 2020, instead of people at news organizations like NPR, like MSNBC, like CNN, like the rest of them, Fox News too, not counting Tucker Carlson, but Fox News too, because
oh no, the ones that got let go were the ones that were telling the truth.
Well, if anything, and my point with that being is if these guys had done their job the way that they're supposed to as journalists in 2020, this Hunter Biden story was the hottest thing out there, and it was the biggest story out there. And that right there is part of the reason that we can sit right here and tell you 2020 election was stolen from President Trump. NPR was involved right along with the remainder of the mainstream media and the government.
Yes. Well, that's like this journalist, Yuri Berliner is his name. And he admits we lost America's trust. And I don't think you're going to get it back anytime soon, especially coming out with this article right here right before an election. I want to know why. Why is this? Why are you all of a sudden the one to bring out? I mean, you've been at NPR for 25 years, but you didn't recognize that this was going on before now?
It was going on a lot longer before 2016, I guarantee you.
You know, it's ridiculous. All of you, none of you have any Republicans or conservatives on your networks any longer. You've pushed them all out. You know why? You've alienated them all. This is ridiculous. It's something that we already know. And I really hope that there are some, level-headed Democrats out there that really realize what you've been fed and that you went along with it. Shouldn't you be angry? Yep. I mean, we know already all of this. We've seen it. Shouldn't you be angry? Shouldn't you be the angry one?
I agree. Because
they just totally messed with you, messed with your head.
Well, and I've said this already before more than once. The 2020 election wasn't just stolen from President Trump. In the 2020 election, my vote for President Trump wasn't just the only vote stolen. Let me tell you what, that election in 2020 was stolen from you just as well.
That's right.
From you Democrats just as well. Because
that's exactly
what they
right.
put up there for you as a candidate was a mirage, was a farce of what you were supposed to have. They cheated your vote too.
They did. They cheated your vote, and they went out and, lied, made up stories, picked certain people that they wanted to put on their programs, and they just ran with it, and that was okay with them. They'd lost all journalistic integrity, and they lost the trust of the American people.
Yep.
Just like our other organizations, for example, the CIA. The CIA and the FBI. Oh, breaking news yesterday. It was so crazy. It was all over mainstream media. well, I'm sorry. It was all over social media. Mainstream media didn't want anything to do with it, and they will cover this up. But CIA officer and former FBI agent boasts about entrapping Americans, targeting Alex Jones and 20 undercover FBI agents working the Capitol on January 6th. He quotes, he says, "You can kind of put anyone in jail. You know what to do. If you know what to do, you set them up. We call it a nudge."
And to put this into context, this is a story from soundinvestigations.com that had an undercover reporter sit down and talk with a man named Gavin O'Blennis, who is a contract officer for the CIA. And during this undercover operation, this is some of the things that was told to him.
So, it's just kind of like, realize the opportunity that you have.
So with Alex Jones, you were watching him long before anything ended up happening.
Probably. It wasn't my office, but, we would have been well aware of what he was doing.
And the goal with him was what, just to bankrupt him?
Pretty much. And we let the families do it.
And what?
We let the families do it.
Were they encouraged to do that by the Bureau? Like nudged?
We don't encourage people.
But
We just say there's no federal statute being broken, but you do have the option for a civil case, and it's a pretty good case.
Nice.
In our opinion.
So, that makes so much sense. I have a cousin who's a lawyer. So that's a lot of these cases. They're kind of encouraged by the FBI.
Yeah, there's nothing federal law we can do, but civilly, we can go at them that way and chop his legs off.
And they did. Yeah. So the FBI was happy.
We didn't care. We were like,
He broke no federal statute, but civilly he can, and we can go in there and cut his legs out from under him.
Take his money away. That is just terrible.
Once again, somebody that comes with truth. Hey, man, say what you want about Alex Jones. He's said some dumb things before, but I want to tell you something. About 95% or better of what Alex Jones has said to everybody in the past 20 years has come true.
That's why they want to shut him up.
That's exactly why they wanted to shut him up. And now you see that our government, in light of the FISA Act and all that we got going on with this, then you've got this coming out right here and them showing you that our government is basically telling us we're going to spy on you without warrants. And if we so deem it,
we're going to ruin your life.
We're going to ruin your life. We don't care that you did or did not break a law. If we deem we want to get rid of you, we'll do it however we have to. May not be able to do it criminally, but we can do it civilly.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. All you got to do is give them a nudge.
That's it. That's all you got to do. That's like, for example, he goes on later on in his undercover here, and he also talks about January 6th. Here you go. Listen to this one.
It's that he knows and works with FBI agents who were undercover in the January 6th Capitol riot, estimating about 20 field agents were there undercover. While O'Blennis notes that they were not involved in violence, this appears to be the first admission of undercover FBI agents in attendance.
I thought you said that there were FBI agents in the crowd at J6.
There always are when there's a big protest in D.C., just in case it gets out of hand like that. But there wasn't enough to turn that tide. I'm talking they maybe have 20. You needed 1,000 to get rid of that crowd.
So they had that was just 20?
Yeah, just to go through and observe and see what they can hear, that kind of thing.
Wow. Definitely. They needed 1,000 at least.
Well,
Wow.
see, that's also Capitol Police jurisdiction. They're in charge.
So
Why they didn't have more on hand, I don't know.
The Bureau didn't really want people knowing that they were in the crowd. Mm-hmm. That would be overstepping their bounds.
A little bit.
Do people know that?
Why?
Did people know that the Bureau was in the crowd?
Nope, and probably never will.
You know agents that were there?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, the agency knew.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. We know there was FBI in the crowd.
Once again, and just like with this, he says, oh, yeah, the Capitol Police, they were the ones in charge. They had jurisdiction.
Yeah. Well, they didn't bring any more
and that's what,
people in.
Yeah, and that's what he asked him. Well, wasn't that kind of like overreach? Oh, yeah. But we don't care. We don't care.
They don't care.
Yep.
They don't care about you. They hate you.
Is this thing working?
Rise up.
Well, hey, everybody, that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. Hope you've learned some things about what's going on around us in the nation and in your communities. You know, we couldn't do this without your continued support either. We appreciate all of you showing up, taking the time to listen to us today. So please, like I say, make sure to hit the like button, share our show with all your friends. We'll see you next time on Is This Thing Working? And as always, I'm James, and that's my lovely co-host over there,
Denise.
and we'll see you next time.
We're out.